Well, I don't think we think enough about how hard it is to actually do interesting and successful things. And so this is a real issue that I got into in that original book, where young people in particular would write their own script for, this is how I want the world to work. This is how, I want to run this thing and I want it to be really successful and I want X, Y, and Z, and here's what I want to be important for this. But like, the reality is everything that is worthwhile is really, really hard, and it's often really, really specific. And so I'm always telling young people something very similar. Before you make your plan for how you're going to execute, becoming a book author, for example, which a lot of people ask me about. Go talk to authors, figure it out. Figure out what the actual reality is of what matters and how people succeed. Don't write your own script with the answers that you want it to be, because often there's a real conflict. Because it's easy to come up with some plan where you're like, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, I'm going to write 20 pages a day, and something that's kind of hard but not too hard, and you think it's going to be fun, and it might have nothing to do with how that industry works. But on the other hand, if you can get the intelligence, maybe by interning with someone who can actually teach you about the field you really care about, and you understand, this is what's involved, then you know where to put your energy. You know where to get the leverage point. It's why in academia, for example, why the people who write papers for star venues tend to train with other stars. Because you just learn, right? If you're at MIT in the sciences, you're going to learn from people that this is what they do. They write papers for the top places. They know how to do it. The mindset's all built around it. You can see what they pay attention to and what they don't pay attention to. And that type of apprenticeship actually matters. We have to lower the bar. So we have to lower the bar from this impossible height where we put it, which is you have a one true passion, and if you figure it out, you're going to love your work starting the next day. And if you get it wrong, you're destined for a life of misery. Like, we have to lower that bar down to, there are many different things upon which you could build a life of real fulfillment and passion. But it's not just dart throwing, right? I mean, it has to be something that you have an interest in. It has to be something that you think would reward you with more flexibility and options as you got better at it, right? So it's not just arbitrary, but most people could probably pretty quickly identify 6 or 7 directions that pass those qualifiers. And so a lot of what I'm saying is that's enough. That's enough for it to pass the bar. I like this, maybe it matches some of my skills. I like the options it would open up if I did it well. It seems to resonate in some sort of ill-defined or ambiguous way. That's all enough for something to be the foundation of a passionate career. And there's probably a lot of things that pass that criterion. That's okay. I say you should look to, let's say, professional musicians, professional athletes, professional chess players, people who have to get good in a world that has a well-defined competence hierarchy, where you have a chess ranking and you can't run away from it. You have a batting average, right? You can't get away from it. Watch how they train. Because in their world, there's a lot of effort that has gone into how do you systematically improve. And what you see is that they deliberately practice. And there's really no shortcut to deliberate practice to gaining mastery in almost any field, but in knowledge work in particular, so in this sort of whole array of sort of various creative and other types of professions. We don't think that way, and people don't actually do a lot of this sort of systematic practice, and so that's why in So Good They Can't Ignore You, I go and I hang out with a professional guitar player. And I say, okay, I want to watch you practice. And in this case, there's actually a good reason to do so, because this is someone who started playing guitar at the same time that I started playing guitar. And at the age where I was not that great, I played in a rock band, and we were like, okay, he had a record deal and was being heralded as like this talent, right, in new acoustic guitar playing. So I said, great, I want to understand, why did he become really, really good? And I didn't. Watching him practice in this sort of musician's frat house he lived in Boston with all these other musicians, answered the question 100%. He was so intense when he was practicing the guitar that he would forget to breathe. So he'd be doing this, he was trying to get a lick faster. So the way he got the lick faster is, let me play it about 10% faster than I can comfortably play it. And he was so concentrated that he'd forget to breathe, and so he would do these ragged gasps every once in a while when his body would force him to take in air. That's the whole difference. I never did that. That's stretching. You're like, what I need to do is be better at this lick. And so I'm going to push myself beyond where I'm comfortable.
I remember asking my dad, I wanted new basketball shoes because I was a basketball junkie back then. He's like, well, your shoes work. If you want a new pair of tennis shoes, you have to go out there and get a job. And I'm like, Dad, I'm 12 years old. And it just so happens he was playing poker with his buddies. And one of his buddies was like, well, I got a job for you. I'm like, okay. And it was when I was selling them and realizing that I liked to sell and that I could sell, and that I recognized that selling was about providing a service and creating value for people, that I knew that I would literally back then, I knew that I could always succeed. I remember I was 16, I think, when I started a stamp company and started going to stamp shows and trade shows and just working a little bit harder than other people and trading up from one stamp to the next. I remember one time I started with a quarter and bought a stamp and left with $50, thinking, hey, if I could do this, I could do anything. And it's not that everything worked. I failed a lot, but I never ever felt like I wouldn't be able to work hard enough to succeed.
Sometimes being young and trying things, you're so naive and you don't know any better. All you do is learn. And if you fail, it doesn't matter. And so whether I was 9, 10, 12, 16, 21, the failures were irrelevant. And whether you're 9, 12, 16, 21, 22, 24, I'm sleeping on the couch. I have a car with a hole in the floorboard. I'm living like a bum and like a student. And so what did I have to lose? And so I think that influenced me as much as anything. So my dad was like, go for it. Why not? What have you got to lose? You have to sleep on a different couch. So I think that was motivation.
I always did everything back ass halfwards. I like to challenge myself, and went to Mount Lebanon High School in Pittsburgh, and I wanted to take business classes my junior year. Only they didn't offer any business classes, and so I decided I'd take some college business classes. But University of Pittsburgh didn't offer any real business classes either. So I said, I'm going to challenge myself, and so I took a couple night classes at the University of Pittsburgh my junior year in high school. Did well in them and wasn't really challenged all that much at all. And so I just dropped out of high school, and instead of going back for my senior year, I went to the University of Pittsburgh and started taking classes there. My buddies were like, "Where'd you go?" And it was just, I've always tried to challenge myself.
You just have to try different things, and even if 99% of them fail, you only have to be right one time. You don't have to figure it all out in advance. You can be wrong, you could pick the wrong career, you can pick the wrong job, you can pick the wrong spouse, you can pick the wrong whatever. But you get it right one time, you're set. But if you don't try, and if you don't go out there and try all those different things, you'll never get that one time. And so it's not a question of, okay, how much different stuff do I do, or how many different things should you try? Try them all. Try them all until you find the one you like. And then it's like, it gets really easy, because even when shit's up, you're on a mission. You're loving what you do, and then it gets easy. And so that's just the approach I've always tried to instill in people who work for me and myself. I didn't have as many personal relationships as I probably would have liked. I put personal relationships aside. I had girlfriends where it was like me or your business, and I was like, what was your name again? I probably took things to an extreme, but yeah, I gave up on personal relationships in a big respect, because I really was on a mission. And once I realized I was going, so when I sold my first company, I bought a lifetime pass on American Airlines, and my goal was just to party with like a rock star in as many countries with as many people as I possibly could. Then I went back and got involved in the streaming business, and I remember sitting there and telling, we had probably 10 employees, and look, the streaming thing I think is going to be really big, and so we really have to focus, and there's going to be some sacrifices. And if you're willing to make those sacrifices, let's go. And if you're not, I understand, you make your own decisions. And I was willing to make those sacrifices, and it all turned out great in the long run, but during that time it wasn't always easy, and it wasn't always, it was tough sometimes.
What if all of us took that attitude after we face a rejection and a no, or we have a meeting and no one shows up, or somebody say, you can count on me, and they don't come through? What if we have that kind of attitude? The car's repossessed. Nobody believes in you. You've lost again and again and again. The lights are cut off, but you're still looking at your dream, reviewing it every day, and say to yourself, it's not over until I win. Life will yield to you. It's possible. I can live my dream. It's necessary. I work on myself. Surround myself with winners. Become creative. It's me. I've got to make it happen. It's not over until I win. The next thing that's important to know, yes, it's possible that you can choose your future and direct the course of your life as you run toward your dream. It's necessary that you have goals, that you write those goals down, that you plan, that you think constantly of how you can begin to improve what it is that you're doing. If it's your presentations, if it's your recruiting skills, whatever that is, it's also necessary that you look for ways to always find a way to pull it out when everybody else thinks that you're defeated. That you've got to take personal responsibility to know that in order to become successful, you've got to make it your personal business to do it. I do not believe that any of us have dreams that were not given to us for the purpose of accomplishing those particular dreams. And I want to share something with you that has changed my life. I started out, as was indicated by Jack, very humble beginnings. I don't know what that dream is that you have. I don't care how far-fetched it might appear to be. I don't care how disappointing it might have been as you've been working toward that dream. But here's what I know, that dream that you're holding in your mind, that it's possible. See, sometimes we can't say, I can do that. But what we can say, that it's possible that I can have my dream as we run toward it, as we work on it day in and day out. No one could have convinced me when I started out just over 6 years ago working on my dream, and I want you to think about whatever your dream is, because I was willing to take a chance, and most people won't do that. Most of the people that you talk to try and bring them into the business, these are not risk takers. Most people have done all that they're ever going to do. They raise a family, they earn a living, and then they die. But people who are running toward their dreams, life has a special kind of meaning. And here's what I will share with you, that in the process of working on your dreams, you are going to incur a lot of disappointment, a lot of failure, a lot of pain, a lot of setbacks, a lot of defeats. But in the process of doing that, you will discover some things about yourself that you don't know right now. What you will realize is that you have greatness within you. What you'll realize is that you're more powerful than you can ever begin to imagine. What you will realize is that you're greater than your circumstances, that you don't have to go through life being a victim. I want you to look at something right now. Think of some major goal you want, or maybe it's one you're already working on and you have experienced a lot of setbacks, a lot of defeats. You've experienced a lot of disappointment. Maybe you've already given up, and maybe you just need a little fire, a little encouragement to get back in the game again. Here's what I want you to look at. There are winners, there are losers, and there are people who have not discovered how to win. And all they need is some coaching. All they need is some help and assistance, just a little support. All they need is some insight or a different strategy, a plan of action to make some adjustments that will open up the key to a whole new future for them, that will give them access to the unlimited power that they have within themselves. That's all that they need. So what I want you to do is think about something you want for you, that's real for you, that's important for you, that will give your life some special meaning and power. And I don't even want you to say, I can do that. I don't want you to assume that. I don't want you to begin to just psych yourself out. No. I want you to be able to say something to yourself that will enable you to maintain a level of integrity with yourself. That when you say this, even when you face tremendous setbacks, it will be a benchmark to keep you in the game, to keep you moving forward and experimenting and readjusting your strategy and your plan of action, continuously looking for ways to win. So what is that something? When you got an idea you want to move on, you might not have the money, you might not have the education, you might not have the support or the resources you need. What is that something that can keep us going, that will enable us to act on our dream? What's one of those keys that will begin to help us to discover the secrets to our dream? Just say to yourself every day, it's possible. Just say that every day to yourself, it's possible. Because what does that do? See, it begins to change your belief system.
Well, I wasn't poor by most people's standards, but I came from a family with a poor attitude, if you know what I mean. Because rich, poor, middle class, poverty starts with a fundamental attitude. So I was in Hawaii, I was 9 years old. My father was the head of education, PhD, very smart man, good guy. And for some reason, we moved across town and I went to a school with rich kids. So this is a little town called Hilo, Hawaii. That's not on the map anywhere, but it is. It's a sugar plantation town. So when I was 9 years old, I moved to this rich kid's school. And suddenly I realized I was poor because it's relative, as Einstein, it's all relative. And my classmates were mostly white guys. And I was one of the few Asians in the class. And these guys, their fathers owned the banks, they owned the plantations, they owned the car dealerships, they owned the meat packing company, they owned the ranches. And I'm going, how come my dad doesn't own that?
Well, most successful entrepreneurs have gone bust. Henry Ford, an old-time entrepreneur, he went bust 5 times. You look at Steve Jobs, his own board fired him. Bill Gates was taken before the Supreme Court for monopolistic practices.
Right.
Even my friend Donald Trump went down $1 billion.
Yeah.
I only went down $1 million. So the average person is so afraid of those losses, they never get ahead. Because at school they teach you if you make a mistake or if you fail, you're a failure. But that's not real life. A baby learns to walk by standing up and falling down, standing up and falling down. And our school system punishes you for making mistakes. That's why my poor dad, an academic, was so unsuccessful. He was terrified of making mistakes.
My attitude is this: if you're going to be a real entrepreneur, you have to be a lifelong learner. I am studying, learning constantly. I never stop. And that's my competitive advantage. But also my core advisor team, we never stop together. You know, I have my accountants, my attorneys, bankers and all that, we study together. That's what we do, we get together. We don't play golf, we don't drink beer, we study. Because study is the way you win. But you have to know what you're studying, because you know what you put in here, garbage in, garbage out, right? The other thing you have to be careful is who's your teacher, who's your mentor. I don't know what the heck people think about money, but that's what I get a lot of, is kind of this, well, you know, money's not spiritual. I'm just saying it's your attitudes, you know, the person's attitude towards money. I make a lot of money, but I give a lot, you know what I mean? It goes to biblical principle, the more you give, the more you receive. So when I meet somebody doesn't have any money, it just means they're not giving something. You know, so a lot of times there's people who would like more, but they're not giving anything. So they're like my poor dad. You know, he belonged to the labor unions and he wanted to work less and get paid more. Well, that's anti-religious to me. If you want to get paid more, work more, give more. That's how I see it. To be successful in the world of business, there's 3 basic types of education you must have. 1, academic education. That's reading, writing, arithmetic. You know, it's very important. I'm not saying it's not important, it's extremely important. So academic is very important. 2nd is professional, where they become a doctor, a lawyer, secretary. In my case, I had 2 professions. My first profession was a sailor. I was a 3rd mate on board oil tankers. Again, it was a good profession. And the 2nd profession was as a pilot, and most of my friends went on to become airline pilots. I just didn't want to fly anymore. And the 3rd is financial education. As a young boy, I realized that I could beat my friends over here if I understood this. In other words, I can make a lot more money here than these guys here. The beauty of the world today is that, you know, like when I went to work for Standard Oil of California, I got paid by the month. And if I was a pilot flying for the airlines, I got paid by the month. And when I worked on straight commissions with Xerox, I got, you know, basically commissions. But I realized from my rich dad talking to me that if I understood financially, I could make money 24/7 without working. That was the difference. So what you'll be learning about is how we make money 24/7 without working. To me, that makes a lot more sense than working hard all the time.
Every decision we make in our lives as individuals or as organizations is a piece of communication. It's our way of saying something about who we are and what we believe. This is why authenticity matters. This is why you have to say and do the things you actually believe, because the things you say and do are symbols of who you are. And we look for those symbols so we can find people who believe what we believe. Our very survival depends on it. So if you're putting out false symbols, you will attract people to those symbols, but you won't be able to form trust with them.
I talk to so many smart, fantastic, ambitious, idealistic, hard-working kids, and they're right out of college, they're in their entry-level jobs, and I'll ask them, how's it going? And they'll say, I think I'm gonna quit. And I'm like, why? They say to me, I'm not making an impact. They treat the sense of fulfillment or even love like it's a scavenger hunt, like it's something you look for. My millennial friends, they've gone through so many jobs. They're either getting fired, I mean it was mutual, or they're quitting because they're not making an impact, or they're not finding the thing they're looking for, they're not feeling fulfilled, as if it's a scavenger hunt. Love, a job you find joy from, is not something you discover. It's not like, I found love. Here it is. I found a job I love. That's not how it works. Both of those things require hard work. You are in love because you work very hard every single day of your life to stay in love.
Passion is not an actionable word. It's correct, that those who do the things that they're passionate about do better, but it's not helpful advice. And so the question is, where does passion come from? passion is a result. Passion is an energy. And passion is the feeling you have when you're engaged in something that you love. Passion is the feeling you have that you would probably do this for free, you know, and you can't believe somebody pays you to do it, you know? And I think we mistake that passion is something we do in our private lives, but it shouldn't be done, you know, in our careers, for example. And I'm a firm believer that you are who you are. And anybody who says, I'm different at home than I am at work, in one of those two places, you're lying. And the goal is to make everything you do in home and at work something that you have excitement to do. So how do you find the things that you're excited to do? Well, it's actually easier than you think. What are the things that you love to do? What are the things that you would do for free? You know, how can you recreate that feeling and be paid for it? So what are the things that I do on the weekend, right? I love, I'm very involved in the art world. I love to go to museums and galleries, but I love to go see dance and performances because I want to see how others are interpreting the world. So that inspires me. New ideas, new thoughts, new ways of looking at the world are things that interest me privately, and I seek it out and pay money for it, right? So does that mean I have to have a career in the arts? No, it means I have to have a career where new ideas are explored, where people are experimenting and trying things out, and I have to explore new ideas and try things out, and I'm just as excited to go to work every day as I am to, you know, go do something on a Saturday night. And so the idea of finding your passion is ironically simple because you should be doing stuff that you enjoy sometimes. What is the stuff that you enjoy, and then what is the stuff that you love? Who are the people that you love, and what do they all have in common?
Say and do what you actually believe, and the symbols you put out there, the things you say and the things you do, those red hats are ways that people can find you. What you have the ability to do as designers is create those symbols and allow people to use those things to say something about who they are. Work for companies, work for clients, work for people who you believe what they believe. Show up and feel a part of something bigger than yourself. And your part is to put what they believe into pictures and words and symbols and graphics so that other people can use those things to say something about who they are.
I want to reiterate, though, I'm just a motivational speaker. That's what I am. You know, Bishop has inspired me and it's really helped me understand my walk. You know, I'm nothing no more than you. You know, my job has been exceptional, though. I've been very blessed in that I've lived a life. God has enabled me to pursue my passion and tied it to my gift. I'm gifted at comedy and I've been able to pursue it. So I wake up every day and for a living, I play music and tell jokes. How big of a blessing is that? But you know, people, they look at that, but so you lose sight of the fact that I'm 54 though. And you don't know the fact that I've been doing this 27 years in order to get to the point where I can wake up and play music and tell jokes for a living. It's like my guest Tim Gannon, who explained the fact that he wanted to play polo. He didn't buy a pony till he was 40. He saw the first race at 16, the first match at 16. He didn't get that till he was 40. But so people look at him as the owner of the Outback Steakhouse and they go, wow, but they have no idea the journey and the stress.
Listen, getting successful, whatever you consider successful, if it's rich, whatever, it's not a magic trick. It's not God picks certain people he'll make rich and certain people he don't. He gives all of us as his children the power of choice. You have a say-so in that. You can decide to be rich, and with God's help, it's highly doable. But you first have to think it. The difference between successful people and non-successful people is here. I'm no better than none of y'all. I'm not a better person than you. I'm not a better Christian than you. God don't love me more than you. None of that. If you want to be successful, you have to change this. This has to change. Listen to me. It's not what makes it hard is your lack of belief that it can happen for you. The fact of it is, though, it's very doable. See, but you got to change, though. If you keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep getting what you've been getting. So if you're at a place in your life and you ain't happy with it, you have to change some things. But you have to make a conscientious decision that you're going to change. And it's not dependent on anybody else. It don't matter what your mama think. It don't matter what your coworkers think. It don't matter what your siblings think. It don't matter what your children think. It don't matter. They have nothing to do with it. This decision is yours and yours alone. It's two people born in a hospital every day. It's a person that's born in a hospital that's gonna get a job, and somebody born in a hospital that's gonna give them a job. You get to decide which one you're gonna make.
Money's not everything. It's really not. And money can't make you happy. Money don't make you happy. I know a lot of miserable people with money. It's not money that makes you happy. It don't. It don't make you happy, but it'll park you right in front of Happy's house. And you can at least see if the stay there. I recommend money. I highly recommend it. And anybody that told you that money different about money is because they don't have none. But you got to quit listening to people that ain't got money tell you about money. Money the root of all evil and all that shit. You do evil stuff with money, but if you're a good person, you can do good stuff with money. You know, people say that money changes people. It really doesn't. You know what I learned about money? Money don't change people. Money allows you to be more of who you really are. See, if you're a kind person, when you get a lot of money, you become a kinder person. If you're an when you get a lot of money, you become a big hole. It's money, it allows you to amplify whoever you really are. That's why when you see rich people acting like it's because they always been one. They always been a They just had the money to flex on to show it to you. That's all it is. But you let they get some money, they finna show your something. And that's it. If you see a person that's cool with money, it's because he always been cool.
You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference. I was lucky. I found what I loved to do early in life. Woz and I started Apple in my parents' garage when I was 20. We worked hard, and in 10 years, Apple had grown from just the two of us in a garage into a $2 billion company with over 4,000 employees. We just released our finest creation, the Macintosh, a year earlier, and I just turned 30. And then I got fired. How can you get fired from a company you started? Well, as Apple grew, we hired someone who I thought was very talented to run the company with me. And for the first year or so, things went well. But then our visions of the future began to diverge, and eventually we had a falling out. When we did, our board of directors sided with him. And so at 30, I was out, and very publicly out. What had been the focus of my entire adult life was gone, and it was devastating. I really didn't know what to do for a few months. I felt that I had let the previous generation of entrepreneurs down, that I had dropped the baton as it was being passed to me. I met with David Packard and Bob Noyce and tried to apologize for screwing up so badly. I was a very public failure, and I even thought about running away from the Valley. But something slowly began to dawn on me. I still loved what I did. The turn of events at Apple had not changed that one bit. I'd been rejected, but I was still in love. And so I decided to start over. I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again, less sure about everything. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life. During the next 5 years, I started a company named Next, another company named Pixar, and fell in love with an amazing woman who would become my wife. Pixar went on to create the world's first computer animated feature film, Toy Story, and is now the most successful animation studio in the world. In a remarkable turn of events, Apple bought Next, and I returned to Apple, and the technology we developed at Next is at the heart of Apple's current renaissance. And Lorene and I have a wonderful family together. I'm pretty sure none of this would have happened if I hadn't been fired from Apple. It was awful tasting medicine, but I guess the patient needed it. Sometimes life's going to hit you in the head with a brick. Don't lose faith. I'm convinced that the only thing that kept me going was that I loved what I did. You've got to find what you love. And that is as true for work as it is for your lovers. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking and don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. And like any great relationship, it just gets better and better as the years roll on. So keep looking, don't settle. When I was 17, I read a quote that went something like, "If you live each day as if it was your last, someday you'll most certainly be right." It made an impression on me, and since then, for the past 33 years, I've looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today? And whenever the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something. Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart.
We live in a world that we want to be as comfortable as we can. And we wonder why we have no growth. We wonder why when the smallest thing in our life gets difficult, we wonder why we cower and we run away. I mean, our whole life is set up that way. Our whole life is set up in the path of least resistance. We don't want to suffer. We don't want to feel discomfort. So the whole time we're living our lives in a very comfortable area. There's no growth in that. So for me, I realized that. The reason I became 297 pounds is because that was comfortable. What was very uncomfortable was running. What was very uncomfortable was being on a diet. What was very uncomfortable was trying to face things that I didn't want to face. And I also realized when I was really big, I had no growth. Why? Because I was living comfortable. So I realized for me to find growth, I had to face all of these different things that made me very, very uncomfortable. One thing I faced was running. I absolutely hated running. But I knew for me to grow, I had to do this thing every single day. I wanted to start callousing my mind. I wanted to start becoming a better person. And how you become a better person, how you gain mental toughness, how you become the person you want to be, is constantly facing the things that you don't want to face. It's these few moments in life that you have. Like for me, I always talk about it. Rocky 1, round 14. That 1 2-minute and 13-second clip of Rocky getting up when Apollo knocked him down. That one clip, when I was going through a very bad time in my life, I saw what I wanted to be. And it wasn't a guy that won. It wasn't a guy that won everything he did. It was a guy that kept getting up after being knocked down. So I realized if that 2 minutes and 13 seconds changed my life, so I saw something that I needed to be in the world I was living in. Maybe my story will give someone the 2 minutes and 13 seconds they need to change their life. Millions of people live in a very comfortable place. That's fine. Don't listen to me. A lot of people are looking for that 2 minutes and 13 seconds, and I might be that person. So when you're born to that, it's all you know. You know something's not right, because in my mind at a young kid, I could tell, man, the way I was processing things wasn't right. I mean, I suffer from severe toxic stress, and that was one of the big reasons why I started, I had a learning disability. My focus in life was way off. I was afraid. I was afraid of everything. I had to find a happy medium, because what's the point? Like, we all have a story, and I believe that we're all teachers. We're all teachers, and if you don't learn something and give back like what you learned, what's the point of living? You're wasting. You have all this knowledge of what you learned. Some people may think you're crazy. Some people may put a title on you, but it is it's those few people who are like, you know what? I need to hear that. So you have to put yourself out there.
I think pushing yourself physically is the number one factor of life. That is the true spot where you can really dive deep into. Life's about self-discipline. It is about self-discipline. We tend to do the things that are easy, and that is it builds no mental toughness. It builds no mental hardening. It builds nothing. When you working out is where you can build that the fastest, because it's a constant. It gives you instant feedback. You may not lose the weight you want to real fast, but the discipline it takes, it transfers over to all aspects of your life. It's not people, man, why are you always working out? Stop looking at it that way. This is the foundation of life. When you look in the mirror, every morning we all look in the mirror to get ready to go to work, to go anywhere. The first thing you see is your reflection. If you don't like what you see in the morning, you lost the war already. It's not about even liking what you see. It's about looking in the mirror and you may start, man, I feel different. That reflection is not everything. It's a feeling you're supposed to get. So you have to, in life, once you leave your house, the war begins. In your house, you have some control. And that reflection in that mirror, you have to control that reflection in the mirror. That's how you start your day. If you leave your house feeling like, okay, I can fight. I've established the mentality to fight. And all that comes from working out. It's not just from, you can't find that in the office. Well, my morning routine is every day I get up and run. Every single day. Because why? I hate that the most. You have to do something that sucks every day. Because why? Once you overcome the suck, Now you're powerful. You've overcome yourself already. So now you're ready to battle.
I just feel like your gifts will make room for you. And when you're trying to be somebody else, you block your gifts. You block your opportunity. So you don't see me trying to throw a football. You don't see me trying to, put a basketball in the hoop. You see me speaking. You see me serving, helping kids get their GED. I blew up with teaching a GED class. That's how I became famous. And people always ask me, why did you start there? I can psychologically tell you how to get prepared for a GED. And then the GED went to, can you help kids stay in college? So I did that in college, and before you know it, because here you are with an opportunity to get a 4-year degree, and you playing, and you doing partying and doing stuff that maybe other kids have an opportunity to do because they got a net to fall back on. You don't have a net. So man, I went off. So for me, my gift has made room for me. Every time I talk, every time I speak, every time I educate, doors open. So man, stop looking at the Joneses might be good at what they're doing, or the grass might be green on the other side, but it means somebody's keeping up with it. They watering, they cutting it. It didn't get green like that on his own.
For some of you, the next level is just accepting that you belong there. Like forgetting your past, forgetting where you come from, not worrying about what you think you don't have yet. Just relax and you belong there. So the next meeting after, they trained me and we talked, the next call was like, yo, E, what you doing tomorrow? I'm like, I don't know, what's up? He was like, Warren Buffett's coming to town. I'm only inviting 30 people to come and I want you to be one of them. I'm like, I'm there. This is when you got to catch this one. There's a reason why I'm in this room, and I'm not the 4th richest person in the world, but I must be rich at something. I just don't know what it is. But I have to be a billionaire in an area, because if I wasn't a billionaire in the area, they wouldn't have attracted me. So I'm looking like, those malls you go to with the Louis and the Prada and my man sitting there, he was the dude that owned those. Then I would watch the game, the Cleveland Cavaliers game, and he would be sitting next to Dan at every game. They all own property, like billions of dollars worth of property. And I started doing my homework and I was like, ooh, I see what they don't have. While they have money and they do business, they don't have the human experience.
But in America, and it was funny, I was just recently in an interview or had an opportunity to do a luncheon with Warren Buffett, and he was just saying that, this is the greatest country to be born in. This is the greatest time, to be born, in this particular country, social media, economics, just opportunity. So, I'm the American dream. I represent, what so many people from my community represent, a mom who had me out of wedlock, pregnant at 17 years old. My grandmother kicked her out, not because she didn't love her, but my grandmother kicked her out because she had 14 kids. When I say the American dream, you're talking about not just my generation, but my mother, trying to finish high school and, getting a job in Detroit, working for Ford Motor Company. So, the journey started with my mom, and I took it from, my mom to an entrepreneur. But, I eventually dropped out of high school. I was homeless for about 2.5 years. And, through education, I think is where, I got my turnaround. I'm not saying degrees. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, going to school and really learning how to identify my craft, how to hone in on my craft, and how to sharpen that craft.
I like school just because, it's a safe place. You got breakfast, you got lunch. You have to worry about, certain things happening when you're in school. Your friends, the social life was great. We're out here making this money and you're going to school for what? What are you going, you're not doing anything. You're not going to Harvard, you're not going to Yale. You're not even going to community college with your grades. So you just need to just quit and let it go. I start getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's like, you're going to have to get up a little bit earlier because you didn't finish school. You didn't take care of your business. Can't get up the same time another man who gets up, who handle his business. And so for me, it was like, you gotta discipline yourself. You might have the same experience they had, so you just gotta discipline yourself. I do vegan most of the time, and I tell people all the time, I love fried chicken. I love macaroni and cheese. I love a lot of dessert. But in my family is diabetes. So it's like, if you do what they do, then you're gonna get the results they got. But if you wanna be with Didi for the next 30, 40 years, you wanna be able to walk. I wanna be able to walk at 60, at 70. I wanna be independent at 80, if I can be. So I'm gonna have to make some sacrifices now.
Ultimately, if you're gonna have lasting change in anything, you're really talking about just raising your standards. I always tell people, if you wanna know how to change your life, I give it to you in 3 words, boring as it sounds, raise your standards. And what does that mean? Corny as it sounds, raise your standards. So thank you for the breakthrough thought, Tony. I'm glad I wasted my time watching this little email with you. But think about it, lasting change is different than a goal. You don't always get your goals, but you always get your standards. Maybe it'll help you is to think about it this way. I try to explain standards to people with a different set of words. Think of it as everybody in life gets their musts. They don't get their shoulds. Think about it. Most people have a list of shoulds, don't they? Don't you have a list of the shoulds, things you should do, you should follow through on? I should lose some weight, I should work out more, I should make more calls, I should respond more rapidly to my email, whatever, I should get into the office earlier, I should be, more confident, whatever your should list is. People love to have their should list be met, but it's kind of like New Year's resolutions. If it does, it's really exciting, but if it doesn't, which is most of the time, it's a little disappointing, but you kind of know it's not going to happen. But when you decide something is a must for you, an absolute must, when you cut off any possible, you say, I'm going to find the way, or I'm going to make the way. Human beings, when they resolve things, when they make a real resolution inside themselves, which is they raise the standard, they make it a must, they find the way. Think about it in your own life. Haven't you had some area of your life where you raise your standard and your life has never been the same? Maybe at one time in your life you smoked cigarettes, or you did something and you did it for years and you kept trying to change it, and kept telling yourself I should. And then one day something happened. Something just clicked you over. Something took you over that kind of tipping point. And inside yourself you said, no more. And it was a very, very different experience, wasn't it? Something inside you shifted, and what was a should became a must, and you've never gone back. Is there an area like that in your life you can think of? Again, did you ever smoke cigarettes? Did you ever eat a certain way, drink a certain form of alcohol, and then finally say no more, and you just don't go back? And notice this, it doesn't really take any willpower anymore. Because somewhere when we make this click, when we make something a must, we attach ourselves to it. It becomes part of our identity. And one thing I've learned in the last, 33 years of working with people from now over 100 countries, 4 million people, is human beings absolutely follow through on who they believe they are. The one thing they all have in common, I think, is they're hungry. And I know that sounds simplistic, but I believe that's the single most important element that separates the quality of people's lives. It's not just the ability to have hunger, but to sustain it. Hunger means that you want more. You want more of yourself. You want to make a bigger difference. You want to be a better parent. You want to do something more than there is today, and that you don't get satisfied. Most people start out with hunger at an early stage of life and they lose it. But the people that come to me are hungry either because something's happened, they've had a birthday with a 0 on it, they've gone through a divorce, they're starting a business and they know I've got to have a different level, or they're the best in the world and they're always looking for that edge that makes the difference. I think everybody is born with hunger. Like there's a desire to grow, to expand, to learn, and then disappointment sets in early in life for most people, and then we look to blame something outside of ourselves. And there are many events in our lives that can affect us all. We've all had pain and challenges, but I think if you can find within yourself the part of you that wants to constantly give something more than yourself, if you can find a mission larger than yourself, then you're more pulled to do something than trying to push yourself. And pull has much more power than push. I always say motive does matter. That if your motive is to serve something greater, there is an energy that comes up inside of you. So I feed 2 million people a year because somebody fed my family when I was 11 years old, and now this year we're feeding 4 million. I want to do more in that area. And every business I'm in, that drive just doesn't go away. Well, it's interesting, since 2008, you've seen most large enterprise companies have really figured out how to respond to the world economic crisis at that time by cutting, right? They figured out how to cut their costs, they grew their bottom lines, and they built up their cash. And so they've done very well. But that was 5 years ago, and it's getting hard to keep cutting. You can't cut your way to growth at this point. So most major corporations are now saying, what do we do about the top line? How do we really grow revenues and sales? And so I built something called Coaching in the Cloud, which we've done for some of the most successful companies in the world. And what it does is it comes in and it revamps the sales process.
The one thing that discipline definitely does help you with is it helps you get things done. And when you get things done, when you actually do things, you have more success. If you have more success, sometimes a big part of success is just not being lazy and just doing it. That's like 90% of it is just showing up. Get there and start working. Like, you're not gonna feel perfect every day. If I only worked out when I felt good, I'd be a fef. Because there's a lot of days I don't want to do it. It's pretty much the same with everybody that actually gets good at something. There's got to be those days you push through, and they're probably going to be more numerous than the days you don't. And so the benefit of discipline in my eyes has always been that through discipline I get things done. I always say that I'm like the most lazy, disciplined person I know, because I don't want to do it, but I always do. if I look back on anything I've ever done, mistakes I've ever made, like paths that something that I put out that I didn't quite think, man, maybe I just waited 3 months before I released that, or maybe I should have, re-edited that blog post a couple more times before I put it online, or those things drive me crazy. But things that I've done have driven me crazy, but yelling at someone I didn't have to yell at them for, whatever. But the most important thing is always for all people to recognize that you're not who you were a year ago. You're not who you were 5 years ago. You're not who you were last week. You're who you are now, and this is the only you have control over. So you gotta regulate how much you dwell on regrets of the past. You really gotta be careful, because it's good to have a little. Because my regrets, whether it's things of professional nature or the very few regrets friendship-wise, which is one thing that makes me very happy. But there's life is strange. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of factors happening in life. But for sure, who I am now wouldn't have ever happened if I didn't fuck up. If I didn't make those mistakes, I wouldn't have understand the importance of friendship and kindness. And if I hadn't been cruel at some point in my life, or someone hadn't been cruel to me, I wouldn't understand the beauty of love. I wouldn't understand the full range of it, because I hadn't felt the sting. If nobody ever punches you in the face, you don't really appreciate safety. Because a lot of people don't even understand what safety is. You could say, oh, we're safe, but you are so not safe at any moment, And when someone's punched you in the face a bunch of times, and you've been in a street fight with some guy you barely knew, you got in an argument with him, there's something about regular safety that's sweeter. It's more delicious. It's way better to drive your car straight after you almost lost control on a turn. I'm not saying that you should go sideways around corners, but what I am saying is that there's a yin and a yang to this world, man. And you gotta fuel yourself with the fuck-ups. And most people get stuck in these patterns because they define themselves as a fuck-up, or they define themselves as a person who doesn't follow through on their ideas, or a person who doesn't pursue their real interests and loves. You define yourself by that. Well, I guess. No, you don't. No, you have started things and you quit, and it gives you a horrible sense of regret that's made you define yourself by that. You don't have to do that. And everybody's different. Everybody's similar, but everybody's different. And your attitude has a giant effect, not just on your life, but on other people's lives around you. That's the other thing about it. Those I can't catch a break guys, get them the fuck away from me. I can't be around those guys. I don't want to hear that shit. I don't want to hear that shit. I don't buy it. Because everybody has bad breaks. I've had a shit ton of bad breaks. But you know what I did? I stayed up. And I thought through it, and I figured out what the fuck I did wrong, and then I went back. It's like, I fucked up everything I've ever done 100 times. And there's no other way to do it. And I've had a bunch of shitty breaks. Everybody has. But you gotta realize when you have those shitty breaks what that is. It's an opportunity for you to reassess, reboot, get better, figure out another way, find another way through. This is just little challenges. And the people that look at those challenges and go, why do I always have these challenges? They're cancer. Those people are dangerous to be around. They will rob you of your enthusiasm. They don't give you any fuel. They're the opposite of fuel.
If you're not being defined by a vision of the future, then you're left with the old memories of the past, and you will be predictable in your life. And if you wake up in the morning and you're not being defined by a vision of the future, as you see the same people and you go to the same places and you do the exact same thing at the exact same time, it's no longer that your personality is creating your personal reality. Now your personal reality is affecting or creating your personality. Your environment is really controlling how you think and feel unconsciously, because every person, everything, every place, every experience has a neurological network in your brain. Every experience that you have with every person produces an emotion. So some people will use their boss to reaffirm their addiction to judgment. They'll use their enemy to reaffirm their addiction to hatred. They'll use their friends to reaffirm their addiction to suffering. So now they need the outer world to feel something. So to change then is to be greater than your environment, to be greater than the conditions in your world. And the environment is that seductive. So then why is meditation the tool? Well, let's sit down, let's close our eyes. Let's disconnect from your outer environment. So if you're seeing less things, there's less stimulation going to your brain. If you're playing soft music or you have earplugs in, less sensory information coming to your brain, so you're disconnecting from your environment. If you can sit your body down and tell it to stay like an animal, stay right here. I'm gonna feed you when we're done. You can get up and check your emails, you can do all your texts, but right now, you're gonna sit there and obey me. So then, when you do that properly, and you're not eating anything, or smelling anything, or tasting anything, you're not up experiencing and feeling anything, you would have to agree with me that you're being defined by a thought. So when the body wants to go back to its emotional past, you become aware that your attention is on that emotion, and where you place your attention is where you place your energy. You're siphoning your energy out of the present moment into the past, and you become aware of that, and you settle your body back down in the present moment, because it's saying, well, it's 8 o'clock, you normally get upset because you're in traffic around this time, and here you are sitting, and we're used to feeling anger, and you're off schedule. Oh, it's 11 o'clock, and you usually check your emails and judge everybody. Well, your body's looking for that predictable chemical state. Every time you become aware that you're doing that, and your body is craving those emotions, and you settle it back down into the present moment, you're telling the body it's no longer the mind, that you're the mind, and now your will is getting greater than the program. And if you keep doing this over and over again, over and over again, over and over again, just like training a stallion or a dog, it's just going to say, I'm going to sit. And the moment that happens, and the body's no longer the mind, when it finally surrenders, there's a liberation of energy. We go from particle to wave, from matter to energy, and we free ourselves from the chains of those emotions that keep us in the familiar past. And we've seen this thousands of times. In fact, we can actually predict it now on a brain scan. The hardest part is to teach our body emotionally what the future will feel like ahead of the actual experience. So what does that mean? You can't wait for your success to feel empowered. You can't wait for your wealth to feel abundant. You can't wait for your new relationship to feel love, or your healing to feel whole. I mean, that's the old model of reality, of cause and effect, waiting for something outside of us to change how we feel inside of us. And when we feel better inside of us, we pay attention to whoever or whatever caused it. What that means then is that from the Newtonian world, is that most people spend their whole life living in lack, waiting for something to change out there. The Newtonian world is all about the predictable. It's all about predicting the future. But the quantum model of reality is about causing an effect. The moment you start feeling abundant and worthy, you are generating wealth. The moment you're empowered and feel it, you're beginning to step towards your success. The moment you start feeling whole, your healing begins. And when you love yourself and you love all of life, you'll create an equal. And now you're causing an effect. And I think that's the difference between living as a victim in your world, saying, I am this way because of this person or that thing or this experience. They made me think and feel this way. When you switch that around, you become a creator of your world, and you start saying, my thinking and my feeling is changing an outcome in my life. And now that's a whole different game, and we start believing more that we're creators of reality.
I think of these things as just, there's a certain amount of time, and within that time you want the best net outcome. So for all the set of actions that you can do, there's going to be some of which will fail, some of which will succeed, and you want the net useful output of your set of actions to be the highest.
If something really makes sense, or if it's just what everybody else is doing. It's hard to think that way. You can't think that way about everything. It takes a lot of effort, but if you're trying to do something new, it's the best way to think.
Work like hell. I mean, you just have to put in, 80 to 100 hour weeks every week. All those things improve the odds of success. If other people are putting in 40-hour work weeks and you're putting in 100-hour work weeks, then even if you're doing the same thing, you know that in 1 year you will achieve what they achieve. You will achieve in 4 months what it takes them a year to achieve.
If you want to make progress in things, I think the best analytical framework for understanding the future is physics. I'd recommend studying the thinking process around physics, like not the equations. I mean, the equations certainly they're helpful, but the way of thinking in physics is it's the best framework for understanding things that are counterintuitive, and always taking the position that you are to some degree wrong, and your goal is to be less wrong over time. One of the biggest mistakes people generally make, and I'm guilty of it too, is wishful thinking. Like you want something to be true even if it isn't true. And so you ignore the things that, you ignore the real truth because of what you want to be true. This is a very difficult trap to avoid. And like I said, it's certainly one that I find myself in having problems with. But if you just take that approach of you're always to some degree wrong and your goal is to be less wrong, and solicit critical feedback, particularly from friends. Like particularly friends, if somebody loves you, they want the best for you. They don't want to tell you the bad things. So you have to ask them, and say, really, I really do want to know. And then they'll tell you. You don't need college to learn stuff, okay? Everything is available basically for free. You can learn anything you want for free. It is not a question of learning. There is a value that colleges have, which is like, seeing whether can somebody work hard at something, including a bunch of sort of annoying homework assignments, and still do their homework assignments and kind of soldier through and get it done. That's like the main value of college. And then also, if you probably want to hang around with a bunch of people your own age for a while instead of going right into the workforce. So I think colleges are basically for fun and to prove you can do your chores, but they're not for learning.
I think failure is bad. I don't think it's good. But if something's important enough, then you do it even though the risk of failure is high. And so I think my advice, if somebody wants to start a company, is they should bear in mind that the most likely outcome is that it's not going to work. And they should reconcile themselves to that strong possibility. And they should only do it if they feel that they are really compelled to do it.
You need to work, depending upon how well you want to do, and particularly if you're starting a company, you need to work super hard. So what does super hard mean? Well, when my brother and I were starting our first company, instead of getting an apartment, we just rented a small office and we slept on the couch. And we showered at the YMCA, and we're so hot up we had just one computer. So the website was up during the day, and I was coding at night, 7 days a week, all the time. And I sort of briefly had a girlfriend in that period, and in order to be with me, she had to sleep in the office. So work hard, every waking hour. That's the thing I would say, particularly if you're starting a company. And if you do simple math, you say okay, if somebody else is working 50 hours and you're working 100, you'll get twice as much done in the course of a year as the other company.
I found that nothing in life is worthwhile unless you take risks. Nothing. Nelson Mandela said, "There is no passion to be found playing small and settling for a life that's less than the one you're capable of living." Now, I'm sure in your experiences in school and applying to college and picking your major and deciding what you want to do with life, I'm sure people have told you to make sure you have something to fall back on. Make sure you got something to fall back on, honey. But I never understood that concept, having something to fall back on. If I'm going to fall, I don't want to fall back on anything except my faith. I want to fall forward. I figure at least this way I'll see what I'm going to hit. Fall forward. This is what I mean. Reggie Jackson struck out 2,600 times in his career, the most in the history of baseball. But you don't hear about the strikeouts. People remember the home runs. Fall forward. Thomas Edison conducted 1,000 failed experiments. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Because the 1,001st was the light bulb. Fall forward. Every failed experiment is one step closer to success. You've got to take risks, and I'm sure you've probably heard that before, but I want to talk to you about why that's so important. I got 3 reasons, and you can pick up your iPhones. First, you will fail at some point in your life. Accept it. You will lose. You will embarrass yourself. You will suck at something. There's no doubt about it. And I know that's probably not a traditional message for a graduation ceremony, but hey, I'm telling you, embrace it, because it's inevitable, and I should know. In the acting business, you fail all the time. Early on in my career, I auditioned for a part in a Broadway musical. Perfect role for me, I thought, except for the fact that I can't sing. I didn't quit. I didn't fall back. I walked out of there to prepare for the next audition, and the next audition, and the next audition. I prayed, and I prayed, but I continued to fail, and fail, and fail. But it didn't matter, because you know what? There's an old saying, you hang around the barbershop long enough, sooner or later you're gonna get a haircut. So you will catch a break. Do you have the guts to fail? Here's my second point about failure. If you don't fail, you're not even trying. I'll say it again. If you don't fail, you're not even trying. My wife told me this great expression. To get something you never had, you have to do something you never did. You've invested a lot in your education, and people have invested in you. And let me tell you, the world needs your talents. Man, does it ever. The world needs a lot, and we need it from you. We really do. We need it from you young people. I mean, I'm not speaking for the rest of us up here, but I know I'm getting a little grayer. We need it from you, the young people, because remember this. So you got to get out there. You got to give it everything you got, whether it's your time, your talent, your prayers, or your treasures. Because remember this. You will never see a U-Haul behind a hearse. I'll say it again. You'll never see a U-Haul behind a hearse. Now, I've been blessed to make hundreds of millions of dollars in my life.
I can't take it with me, and neither can you. So it's not how much you have, it's what you do with what you have. What are you going to do with what you have? I'm not talking about how much you have. Some of you are business majors, some of you are theologians, nurses, sociologists, some of you have money, some of you have patience, some of you have kindness, some of you have love, some of you have the gift of long suffering, whatever it is, whatever your gift is. What are you going to do with what you have? All right, now here's my last point about failure. Sometimes it's the best way to figure out where you're going. Your life will never be a straight path.
You know, you're always affected by opinion, but the more opinions there are of you, the less I look at them, because I just can't live my life based upon what other people think about me. So I can't concern myself too much with what other people think. You know, it's just not healthy. I don't think I could continue to do what I do if I was constantly worrying about what somebody thought about it.